We're about an hour away from the Senate's final vote on the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure package. The bill is widely expected to pass. A bipartisan win in the Senate will be seen as a victory for President Biden, who, as a candidate, promised successful cooperation with the opposition. And as commander-in-chief, he has made infrastructure a major part of his legislative agenda. For more on this now, we are joined by Rhonda Colvin. She is a congressional reporter for the Washington Post. So thanks for joining us. The bill is almost certain to pass. When it goes to the House, though, when will they take it up, and what challenges does it face there?
Well, yes, it will be on its way to the House after it sees passage today in the Senate. We're unclear right now if Speaker Pelosi is going to call the House back. She was asked that at her last weekly press conference last week, and she didn't give a direct answer. But she has always said for the last month or so that she will not bring this to the House floor unless it has that budget reconciliation package. It's that package that Democrats plan to pass today in the Senate that deals with so-called human infrastructure, expanding social programs like Medicare, universal pre-K, climate change initiatives. So that's something that the Democrats in the Senate are working on today, and Speaker Pelosi says she will not bring the overall infrastructure bill to the House until that reconciliation package is also attached to it.
All right, just stand by for just one moment. We want to take our viewers, or we want to dip in a bit to Minority Leader Mitch McConnell on the floor of the United States Senate, who's just speaking now. Let's take that.
Double the dose. According to what they just released, Democrats want to unite behind Chairman Sanders' resolution to spend a staggering $4.2 trillion more dollars. Of course, outside experts estimate the real cost will be even higher still. If it's even close to fully offset, as they claim it is, this seems almost certain to be the largest peacetime tax hike on record. So let that sink in. The largest peacetime tax hike on record. Even though their rough sketch of these tax hikes would shatter President Biden's promise not to raise taxes on the middle class, families earning well under the president's stated threshold would get hit and hit hard. This new reckless taxing and spending spree will fall like a hammer blow on workers and middle-class families. Fewer jobs, lower wages, more inflation pushing costs higher and higher. What our colleagues are proposing and planning is absolutely jaw-dropping. People want to pretend this is just business as usual, just liberals doing liberal things using Senate procedure. Make no mistake, this reckless taxing and spending spree is nothing like we've seen, nothing. The basic math of their taxing and spending is toxic enough, but the radicalism that we'll be debating on the floor goes well beyond dollars and cents. The policies they want to put behind this budget resolution read like somebody walked across the rotunda to the House and handed the squad a pen and piece of paper. Sweeping amnesty for illegal immigrants in the middle of a border crisis. Regulations that are so radical that our colleague Senator Markey, quote, said, the Green New Deal is in the DNA of this budget resolution. All of the things that are in this we talked about in the Green New Deal, end quote, Senator Markey. They want to introduce 49 other states to make their, induce 49 other states to make their electric grids more like California's, make it more expensive to mine critical minerals we need to compete with China. They want to take working families' child tax credit and turn it into a permanent welfare program, listen to this, with no work requirement. They want to tamper with the prescription drug industry in ways that would leave Americans with fewer new treatments and fewer new cures. They want to put government's thumb on the scale of families' child care choices and selectively subsidize parents whose households work the way Washington wants. And they want to tax more money out of Americans' pockets while reviving a special tax cut that overwhelmingly benefits wealthy people in blue states. So let's face it, the brute facts of the Senate's rules mean that if 50 Democrats plus the vice president stick together, Republicans will probably not be able to save our colleagues from themselves. If all 50 Democrats want to help Chairman Sanders hurt middle-class families, if even our colleagues who claim they're moderates want to follow the far left off this cliff, well, that's their prerogative. But we're going to argue it out right here on the floor at some length. Every single senator will be going on record over and over and over. Senate Republicans will be bringing forward common sense amendments that represent what Americans actually want and actually need. Our colleagues can look forward to votes on national security and funding our armed forces, votes to remove backdoor tax cuts for wealthy liberals, votes to protect family-owned small businesses and family farms from crushing tax hikes, votes to encourage schools to finally reopen in person, to stop the catch and release of COVID-positive illegal immigrants coming into our country, to protect taxpayers from being forced to fund the horrors of abortion. And that's just a sampling. Because our Democratic colleagues missed some deadlines, it has been an all-out sprint to prepare amendments. So I want to thank our nonpartisan Senate clerks and parliamentarians. They've worked multiple weekends straight through. They were kept up late last night processing hundreds of amendments, and they're going to be up late with all of us yet again. If President Biden and 50 Senate Democrats want to outsource domestic policy to Chairman Sanders, if this historically reckless taxing and spending spree is how the modern Democratic Party wants to define itself, if they want inflation and tax hikes to be their legacy, then Republicans do not currently have the votes to spare the American families this nightmare. But we will debate, and we will vote, and we will stand up, and we will be counted. And the people of this country will know exactly which senators fought for them.
All right, Rhonda, you could just hear there the minority leader making that speech on the floor of the Senate. What's your take on what he was saying and what he was suggesting?
It's not too surprising that Senator McConnell spoke in opposition to the budget reconciliation process that will be happening after that bipartisan infrastructure package is voted on. So his concerns that he laid out there are something we've heard quite routine from Republicans ever since President Biden came out with his plan to have human infrastructure be a part of the larger infrastructure package and vote. So he was speaking on some of the things that Democrats want in that budget resolution, which includes a pathway to citizenship. It includes expanding health care for seniors and programs for caregivers. So this is something that the Republican caucus in the Senate has been very vocally opposed to it, which is why Democrats are going this route of taking this legislative process known as reconciliation to get that soft infrastructure or human infrastructure deal through.
The thing about that infrastructure deal is that, yes, Republicans are opposed to it, but they also need every single Democrat to sign on. Do they have that level of support?
From what we're hearing, yes, but of course, you certainly can't speculate with Congress and certainly not the Senate until the ink is dry. So I think all eyes will be on those senators that we commonly look at when there are these close votes. Kristen Sinema of Arizona, Joe Manchin of West Virginia. Those two have talked about how much money this is going to spend. That human infrastructure package is $3.5 trillion. And the hard infrastructure package, the one for roads and bridges, that's $1 trillion. So we have heard some of those Democrats talk about their opposition to spending that much money. So yes, all votes are going to count. They need their Democratic majority to vote on this together in concert in order for it to pass and move toward committee work that will be happening in order to bring that to the House as well.
So if and when it passes the House and is signed into law by the president, Rhonda, when can we actually see infrastructure projects start popping up? I feel like we've been talking about infrastructure going back to former President Trump's administration and even before that. And if you point to our nation's bridges and roads and, just a myriad of infrastructure projects that are languishing or failing, most people would say, I haven't seen anything in my city or in my town or in my neighborhood. So when could conceivably Americans point to something and say, hey, it's because of this infrastructure bill that this bridge got fixed, for example?
Yeah, I think that's the million-dollar question right now is when will we see the real physical results of this bipartisan vote here. I'm not sure we know or can put a date or even a month on this, but I think if anything, you may start seeing some confidence building in local municipalities who are looking to fix that bridge or fix the rail system in their area. Contractors and construction workers may be hiring. Those are things you might see that are part of the confidence people feel after they see this type of vote. But you're right, this infrastructure at all, policy involving infrastructure has always been talked about in different administrations before this. So that also highlights why this day is pretty significant. And you have a significant amount of Republican support for this bill that has been crafted by a Democratic White House, and Americans of any party are going to be able to see the results of that sooner than later.
We know that the former President Trump has been really critical of this, has called it a disgrace. If Mitch McConnell was smart, then he wouldn't sort of go for it. This is the beginning of the Green New Deal. He had all sorts of things to say about it. But now it's pretty much on the cusp of being passed in the Senate. I wonder if this says anything about the former president's influence over the Republican Party.
Yeah, that's a really interesting and very good question right now, because we're seeing, remnants of his influence among his party, especially among House Republicans when you think of something like the January 6th investigation. But when it comes to infrastructure, I think the Republican senators are probably reading some tea leaves back at home, that they know that this is highly popular among their constituents, that whatever party you're in, you have to drive down roads, you may have to catch a plane or a bus, and you're going to be able to see money flowing in those areas around your town and your cities. And that's something that's pretty important, according to polling, pretty important to most American voters, despite what party they might be associated with. So I think that popularity may be overshadowing some of the former president's comments right now. Republicans are likely going to go on their August recess break, and the Republicans who vote for it, and talk this up, talk about how this was a bipartisan deal that they worked on Democrats with, and that they're bringing these projects home to their constituents. So I think that might be one of the reasons we're not seeing the former president's comments stick, is that this is highly popular. It's also something, when you talk about infrastructure, it's something that you really can't argue with from an ideological standpoint. It's not something like abortion or guns or any policies like that, or even police reform, which is something else we're still waiting to see if there are any bipartisan deals on that issue. So this is something that's really hard to argue when Americans, Democrats, Republicans, all of us know what it's like to drive on bumpy roads or wait for rail service that needs to be improved.
Do we ever? So Rhonda, when this passes, who will be able to claim the biggest feather in their cap? Will it be Republicans or will it be Democrats? I mean, it will be interesting to see how this is spun as we get closer, for example, to the midterms.
You're right. I think both parties are going to be able to use this. Members of both parties who vote for this. I was looking at the vote tally from Sunday's vote, where they had sort of a test vote to overcome a procedural hurdle to get the infrastructure bill in line to vote today. And I was looking down their list of Republicans who voted for it, and I believe it was Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, as well as Senator Hoeven of North Dakota, were two Republicans who will be up for re-election in 2022. They voted yes on this. So I think we may see more. I'm not sure, but I think Republican senators like them will be able to take this on the road, talk it up, and that's something that their constituents will likely, according to polling, want to hear more about. I think also this may be just something that Congress itself can talk about as an achievement, because if you look at their approval ratings, only about a quarter of Americans approve of the job that Congress is doing right now. And their approval ratings have been quite low for some time. So this is something that all members of Congress will be able to point to, saying, we negotiated it out and we were able to vote on it in a bipartisan way.
All right, Rhonda, thank you very much.
Thank you.